Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Kehila Kadosh Yanina, the only Greek Roman Youth synagogue in the Western Hemisphere. My name is Marvin Marcus. I am president of the synagogue, and my family goes back to Vedia. My family name was Mordechai. My father's name was Azariah ben Mordechai. He came here around 1920 with his sister and his brother, and a brother came earlier in life. I've had the opportunity to go back to Vedia, and it was just a wonderful experience. I can't tell you how happy we are to see you all here today, considering the weather that we've had today. So thank you very much for coming to honor this wonderful family. The Koen family has been coming to the synagogue for many years. Yeah, let's hear it for them. You know Sivan and Elio since they were little kids, really running around here. So, and I always knew when it was Yom Kippur because they would be here for the holiday. Okay, I am a Sephardic Jew. I speak Ladino. My mother's side was from Turkey, from Izmir, and as I said, my father's side is from Greece. And it's been my pleasure for the past 20 years to be president here. And I don't know if you people knew Hai Jini, who was the gentleman who was president here for close to 40 years. But it was because of him that we're here today. So I'd like to turn this over to my son, Andrew.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrew Marcus. I'm Director of Community Development here at the synagogue. I'm honored to be born and raised here at Kehila Kadosh Yanina and volunteer to help organize events like these and many others throughout the year. As my father said, we're not only the only Romaniote synagogue in the Western Hemisphere, we also have a museum and we're really a cultural center for educational programs throughout the year with book presentations like these, film screenings, concerts, and our most popular event, the Greek Jewish Festival every May, where we have, thank God, thousands of people come out to celebrate our shared culture and heritage from across Greece for millennia. It's my honor to recognize a number of important dignitaries and guests this morning. First, we want to thank Mr. Solomon Aser for joining us, President of the American Friends of the Jewish Museum of Greece, Ms. Anita Pinto, the General Secretary of the Jewish Community of Thessaloniki, and distinguished board members as well as of the American Friends of the Jewish Museum of Greece. As my father said, we're really honored to share this celebration today with the Koen family. I will let them speak for themselves. The book is beautiful. It's really an incredible, inspiring work. I do have to say one thing that unfortunately many of you saw the news this morning of the terrible attack in Australia against the Jewish community celebrating Hanukkah. We know tonight celebrate the first night of Hanukkah. And I'm sorry to say that unfortunately the lessons of this book and the lessons of our family still need to be taught to the Jewish community and to the broader community around the world, not only to never forget, but to prevent the hatred and dehumanization that you're going to hear about that's described in this incredible book. So we pray that all those who are wounded will be healed. We pray that the people who were killed, their memories will be a blessing, and that all the Jewish community around the world will know only peace and happiness going forward. So with that, again, I want to thank you all for coming. Join us throughout the year for Shabbat services, for educational programs. And today really is a celebration not only of this amazing book, but all of our love for the Koen family, as my father said. And we're really excited to share this day with all of you. So thank you all for joining. And Victor and Sivan, come on. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I'm very, very sorry. One of the most important dignitaries today is our dear friend, Dr. Dimitri Argidiadis, who's going to come up, just returned from Greece, and he's going to come up and actually introduce the Koens before they speak. So, hello.
Well, I wasn't expecting this honor, but I'll try to do my best. I've overcome the jet lag so far. I have to say that the Lagoon is a setting of a remarkable story. the story is a product of imagination of a young girl, which is stupendous. I mean, you know, it's something that doesn't happen every day. You don't find too many girls in their teen years, dream of stories that address issues as vital, as important, and as meaningful as themes that are covered by this book, The Lagoon. The Lagoon is about a family of birds, but of course could be a family of people who live happily until a band of vultures interrupt, if you like, bring to an end this idyllic life of theirs. And obviously, there's very little that these flamingos can do to resist. And that is maybe the one point of difference between the book and our experience, that we have learned that in circumstances like this, even the flamingos have to band together and offer whatever resistance is available to them. I don't want to talk too much. I wanted to close by not only thanking, but congratulating Sivan for a wonderful piece of work, her family, Victor and Ninette and Elio, who is hiding there. You know, I had to look at him very intently because with this hat of his, it's difficult. And but I think that Sivan produced a beautiful piece of work, partly on account of the support that she gets from her family and her broader community, which has come here to congratulate her and to applaud her and to support her. Thank you, Sivan. Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Ninette. Thank you, Elio. And thank you all for coming out on this not exactly auspicious day in terms of weather, but I think that this is in many ways a welcome surprise. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Victor.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out in this snowing winter wonderland. It's really heartwarming to see you here. I will go with some thank yous in the beginning, because then you forget them at the end. So first of all, would like to thank Kehila Kedusha Yanina for this hospitable, warm, and familiar place. It was very important that Sivan and I will do this almost in a home away from home to a certain degree. Number two, I would like to thank the American Friends of the Jewish Museum in Athens for supporting in meaningful, emotional, and also conceptual ways this publication. I also want to thank the actual museum in Athens that published the book under the umbrella of publication and their large activities. So there are a lot of it really takes a village. Especially Professor Argyriadis, thank you for your support in the early parts of the book, in helping with the editing of the project, but also at the end with the substantial support for the publication. How will this work? Sivan will do a short presentation with images, so you guys get some visual context as well. Then I will be asking questions from Sivan. May I call you Sivan? Yes. And then we will have a Q&A, and then it's refreshment. The only reason I'm here is just because I'm the chair of BFA Illustration and BFA Comics at the School of Visual Arts. So narrative works, children's books, and sequence are a specialty of mine. Also, I am a specialist in Sivan. So this may be fairly expert in the subject matter. Sivan, please take it away.
Hi everyone. I really appreciate everybody for coming out in this weather. It really means a lot. I'm looking at the crowd and everyone's a familiar face, and this really means a lot to me. So I just wanted to say, just to do a quick presentation on the way that I thought through this book, and to do that I really had to put myself in the shoes of 13-year-old Sivan, because at the time it was just a project in my English language class, and I did it for the grade, but when I really reflected on it in preparation for this event, I thought of a few reasons why I would have written about such a tough topic at such a young age, like 13. So the first thing that came to mind was my artistic upbringing, and my parents were very supportive of me. They encouraged me to express myself, be creative. I went to a very good elementary school, PS40, with an amazing art teacher who really pushed me to do some of my best work. Some of that work being this paper mache project that ended up being selected for the public school art competition every year at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And the prompt was to choose an artist that inspired me, and instead of choosing my dad, I chose Pablo Picasso, but this ended up being something really meaningful to me because my art teacher inspired me so much, and so do both of my parents. And I think the second thing that really impacted the way that I approached this book was growing up in a Jewish home. I went to Hebrew school. I did the Hebrew school plays, thank you Judy, where I sang renditions of Go Grease Lightning in Hebrew. But, and I think being Jewish and celebrating the holidays and having my bat mitzvah was really important in making me very proud about who I am and where I come from. And I think this especially stems from the fact that I met two of my great-grandparents when I was young who were survivors of the Holocaust, my Papu Yosefi, who was my father's grandpa, and my Yaya Sigria, which was my dad's grandma. And even though I don't remember it because I was so small, the knowledge that I did kept me very aware of where I come from, and every year that these pictures resurface during Holocaust Remembrance Day, I just think back to my history and the strength of the family members that I come from, and now I'm here today, which is a miracle given what they went through. And so just for a few more pictures of my family members that I really wanted to share. This one was my dad's grandfather, Babu Baruch, and this picture is in the Washington DC Holocaust Museum. And this image is again of my Yaya Silvia and my grandma Fermosa during the 2004 March of the Living. And this right here is my Nona Kula, my mom's great-grandmother. So having from both sides Holocaust survivors, it was a very big part of my life growing up. But when I was younger, I didn't really know. I knew that it was a part of my life. I didn't really know what it was, because when you're younger, they will tell you when you're older. You'll understand when you get a little bit older. And eventually, I got older. I got to bat mitzvah age, and I think that's when I started to realize that I had a lot of questions that I wanted to answer. And when my parents, I believe they had gotten me Anne Frank's diary for the first, as a kind of a first going into what the Holocaust was, I read it, and from then on I couldn't stop reading. So I remember, I believe it was, from 7th to 8th grade, I read all of these books. Mm-hmm. I really felt like I needed to learn what happened. I felt I was at that age, I was ready to learn about some of the details I couldn't handle earlier in my life. And especially, I remember reading this book, two books I remember very specifically. Number of the Stars, I remember reading it in 5th grade, and it was a very nice introduction. It wasn't too graphic, but I remember thinking, like, this isn't just a book, this has something to do with me. Like, I knew that this was something a little bit personal, and I remember that I read I've Lived 1,000 Years. It's told from the perspective of a 13-year-old girl, which, since I was 13, I think made a greater impact. And so, when in 8th grade, my English language teacher, Ms. Nelson, when we had just wrapped up our Animal Farm unit, and she presented to us our project, stating, okay, everybody make an allegory based on a historical event, it almost felt like the obvious thing for me to do. I knew in the moment, I didn't have to think about it, I knew two things. I didn't want to work with anyone, and I wanted to write about this. And so I got home, and I remember asking my parents for inspiration on the animals and doing some biological research to see if these animals worked, and it ended up becoming this book that I really couldn't stop writing. And when I did, I knew I had gotten it out of my system, everything that I had read and processed. And it makes me very proud that this book is the product, because I'm very proud of where I've come from, and I'm very happy that I get to share this with you.
So pretty much the way the Holocaust is approached in school is from one side from the literary world, and from the other side is the historical, as part of your history class. How much was it covered really in 8th grade, let's say, or in general in high school?
Yeah, I remember in history class it was mostly covered, and they had some pictures up on the board, but it was one of those units that, you spend maybe a week on it and you move by, but I remember looking at the pictures on the board and I'm like, this is like, this could have been my great-grandparents. I knew this was something that I needed to give a second thought to.
And you were given the animal farm, so the brief was specifically to create a parallel allegory to that.
Yeah, and yeah, it was based on a historical event, and I remember reading the end of Animal Farm and getting chills, and I think those chills reminded me of what I had read in my other books, and I think maybe that's also what inspired me to write this book on.
As far as your process goes, did you first write it completely and then illustrated it? They were happening in parallel? How did this all develop?
Yeah, I think that I ended up writing a really rough draft first, because I remember I wanted to get it out, get it on the keyboard, and I wrote through it. I think as I was doing it, I was coming up with the character design as I was writing. There are some characters, the flamingos in general in this book, it's like the group, but there are a few specific ones, like the eldest flamingo, Cinnamon, one of the mothers, Anita, so I had to really think, how did I want the family dynamics to work based on what I've seen in my own life, and how I wanted to kind of mimic that along with the illustrations of the main ones that were going to have their own characteristics.
Mm-hmm. Because this is, people haven't really read the book, could you read the first couple of pages?
Yeah.
So people get a better idea?
Yes, of course. This is, it's up there too. Alright, I'll read it like this. Yeah? Once upon a time, there was a community of animals that lived their lives around the Cahoon Lagoon. There were the flamingos and the frogs who coexisted in harmony and lived a comfortable life. Flamingos like Anita, who had a flaminglet named Dewey, chased him around all day as he explored the lagoon. When he tired himself out, she would teach him how to feed himself, eating the shrimp that was slowly turning him pink, just like the others. Soon enough, Dewey and the other flaminglets, like Herman and Derek, started to figure out how to fly. The animals in the Cahoon Lagoon continued living as they always had, ungoverned by any other animal.
One more?
One day, and these are the vultures, and these are the flamingos and the frogs. You can see it. One day, a flock of vultures landed near the edge of Cahoon Lagoon, yet to be noticed by any other animal. They called the frogs and the flamingos over, and then the largest vulture emerged from the group and said, "I am Diablo, and I have come in peace." This relieved the animals, and a deep sigh was heard from both the frogs and the flamingos. One of the older flamingos, Cinnamon, stepped up and asked, "Why have you come to Cahoon Lagoon? Are you and your flock intending to stay?" This struck the animals, as they had just seen the vultures as visitors. But the question made them worry, as they would rather not want the lagoon to be very crowded. "Actually, we've been eyeing your small community and would like to stay amongst you." This left the animals with quite an uneasy feeling. The frogs thought about it for a moment, but as it least concerned them and their mostly in-water life, they agreed. However, the flamingos had second thoughts. It's just...
So, when you build a story, what comes first is pretty much the character development. You see who's going to go through that book. The second one is the plot, the basic narrative, and then you start developing also the look. How did you name the character? What was on your mind when you were naming them?
I think I was trying to find maybe semi-Jewish names. I remember I kind of mulled over the names for a while. But yeah, like Anita, that's kind of Jewish. Cinnamon isn't so much, but although part of me wanted to name each of the characters members of my own family, but I didn't end up doing that. But I know that each of them does represent like somebody specific in my family that I had in mind while I was writing this book.
Yeah, Sylvia.
Yeah, Sylvia, of course. Sylvia was supposed to be Cinnamon, my great grandmother. Yeah, so
So you struggled a little bit.
yeah, I
with
struggled
back
a
and
little
forth.
bit with. I wasn't sure if I should make it super literal or thing, but I think maybe in the Greek version we made it a little bit more on point with the Jewish names.
Other than the school information, did you do any more research on the story?
I think I looked back at some of those books that I had up on the presentation as a reference to the way that the flamingos were getting treated and kind of the steps, like how severe the treatment of the flamingos got. And I was also taking it from all the stories that we've heard from our own family members, and yeah, so I just went back and read up on stories and firsthand experiences to kind of use those as inspiration.
You mentioned that this was kind of like a heavy subject for such a young person. Were there any more heavy subject projects in your class, or were you the only one?
That's a good question. I think a lot of people did things that we had learned about in class, like other historical events, but to everyone, it was just a project that didn't really, I don't think anybody else did something family connected. I think they wanted to do something more fun, and I saw this prompt and I was like, oh, this is not gonna be fun, but I need to do it. I think I knew that, like I wanted it to be something meaningful.
What kind of, how was it received from your classmates and your teachers?
I'm not sure if my classmates read it, but my teacher really, really liked it. She's one of my favorite teachers, one of those teachers that you keep in contact with even after years. She just moved to Boston, but I wish that she could be here today. But she really, really enjoyed it, and I remember she was proofreading some of the versions because she wanted to help in support this project.
Is it true you didn't get an A on the project?
Yeah, I did. We got scored out of 7 and I got a 6, which is the funniest part about all of this. But I'm glad my mom saw the potential. Despite the 6 out of 7.
Now, what's interesting here is that this was not written as a book, this was not written as a children's story, and this was not really a Holocaust story. But all of this comes together very organically. Children's stories have a very different kind of mechanism that you write them. The hero prevails for most of the times, and there is a happy ending. So that's not the case on this book. But what really ties in this allegory with a very successful children's book is a really strong lesson or message. That is really the bedrock of every children's story. What is the message? What are you trying to say?
Yeah, I think that the message is, of course, the dangers of othering, because throughout the story, the vultures kind of make up these reasons as to why the flamingos are so different and are so disruptive, and yeah, just that idea of like pushing people out and just really othering for quite like no reason, and I just wanted to keep that theme throughout the book, and almost how the frog, if you put it in boiling water, doesn't really realize, but I think I wanted to portray that the flamingos started to realize what was happening and started to talk, but then it might have been too late. That sense of awareness, but also that sense of othering and just really mistreating people to such an extent.
7 years later, is that message the same, you feel?
Yeah, I think that message is the same, but I also think that since this has become a children's book, and I really hope that it's read by children, that they can start to see the signs of this mistreatment and just not being kind to one another. And I hope that they can identify this in the behavior of the vultures so that if they see that in their own lives in any capacity, no matter if it has to do with Judaism or not, that they see it and they learn to stop it, because as we know, it's like a snowball. Once it starts, it can get to levels that we couldn't even imagine, and I think that this is a good introduction to those really tough ideas to wrap your mind around when you're younger, and I think that something like this would have been really helpful for me, who was kind of, since I was grappling with those ideas.
Did you ever consider a different ending to the book?
That's a good question. I don't think I did. The ending is, not to spoil it, but the ending, the main character, the mother, Anita, like her child has been taken away, and at the end she sees the main vulture, Diablo, kind of grab her neck by the talons, and that's where the story ends. And I remember thinking that this is not a story with a happy ending, and to have the lesson and to carry the weight that this book does, it can't. Like, we have to keep it semi close to reality, where in the end, like, that was the epitome of evil, and that's where it ends. And yeah, I never considered a happy ending. I thought that this needed kind of the sad ending to really solidify the.
Okay. You're very Greek in many ways. And so you come from a long tradition of a very small community where the impact of the Holocaust was like extremely heavy, if not the heaviest worldwide. Do you think this is something that made you so sensitive to this?
Yeah, I think that, as I said, I know where I come from. I feel after all of this that I feel more connected to my family members that I never got to meet, that my parents never got to meet, that their parents never got to meet. And it's, I don't know, because we're such a small community, I feel like every year I'm reminded of that, and it's very important to me. Like, for me, the fact that our great-grandparents were Holocaust survivors, that's one of the main things that makes me very, very proud, and I don't know, it's had a really big impact on my life, I guess.
Do you dream of the Holocaust?
Yeah, I actually do. That's one of the things that I have to work through, but it's, yeah, it's very heavy, and I think at 13, after reading all those books, I couldn't not have some sort of nightmare about this. It almost feels like our great-grandparents survived, but what if it happened again? Yeah, it's a little bit dark, but yeah, sometimes I do have those dreams where you're imagining that you're in the place of the story that you've heard of your great-grandparents, and you're thinking, well, what would I do in this situation? And now more and more, the world is just getting to be a scarier and scarier place that, stories like these just keep coming up, and I don't know, it's very scary.
So this is a small project. It was done within many units in your school year. And this, I was about to say all of a sudden, but it doesn't happen all of a sudden. There's always a reason for things that happen or don't happen with projects like these. But this photocopy piece ends up in the hands of the Jewish Museum in Athens, and it becomes part of their Holocaust programming for children since last year. And then you have an English edition of the book, and now the Greek edition just came out in Greece. It was just actually delivered last week. How does that happen? Do you... Let me help you.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Sivan.
Yeah. You have a question.
So I would like to, other than getting context and all the emotional investment that Sivan has put into the book, I would like to also, because each and every one of you has a story at home that really deserves to be known, and that will be a lesson for others. So about 3 years ago, there was a competition about the Holocaust in the Jewish community in Athens. Of course, in a net sense, Sivan's book, as this great believer and champion and lobbyist for this book. And it was just like a little photocopy kind of pack of pages. And then from there, nothing really happened because the competition got canceled. and so on, but nevertheless, when you do something, it doesn't fall into the void. It always finds its way to a good place. So that actually was sent to the Jewish Museum of Greece in Athens and in the hands of Zanet, the director of the museum, and it got in with their educational programming team. So I received an email if we would agree for this to be part of, they were looking for something that was skewing younger to use as a teaching tool for the schools that were visiting, and then the museum in Athens gets a lot of visits from schools to look into the Jewish history of Greece. And of course we said yes. Sivan didn't know, but as a
And then they
de
moved me
facto-
and they CC'd me.
Yes, as the de facto agents, we said yes. And then eventually, I think to a certain degree, that made it a little more, we needed a more substantial thing to give out to these kids. And instead of like a pack of photocopy pages, we thought it would be great for them to have a real book. And then you go into the process of course, treating it professionally, not only in the way it's laid out, and one of the most difficult things for us to do is to really preserve the integrity of the 13-year-old Sivan. Was that also something that you were
Yeah,
dealing with?
Yeah, while you were talking, I was thinking that I could have gone back and I could have rewritten it in a way as I would as a 20-year-old, but I think that keeping it in the 13-year-old voice makes it so much more approachable to a wide range of ages, and I think I wanted to kind of keep that 13-year-old mentality and just a simpler way of writing it, which I could have enriched it with better vocabulary, but I think keeping it on a bit of a younger level could make it so much just a better children's book, and just to show how a 13-year-old thinks about these things. I think that's very interesting and something that I don't think I would have thought of. So I just really wanted to keep the authenticity in both languages. So I think that's really important.
So the editing of the book pretty much took a village of people that had to collaborate. Professor Argiliadis was involved in the 13-year-old Sivan project, and then he got involved in the 20-year-old Sivan project, but also Inovel Mayor, who's here, also took a look and made some corrections, and Betty Magrizou from Greece, the author of the the Bracelet of Fire, was involved in it. And eventually the whole project took a form, it was relaid out, the cover was changed to give it a little more of a commercial look. And then you go rounds of corrections, and then you have to get with a good print shop in Greece that produce, the same people produce both, print shop in Thessaloniki that we've been collaborating before. And as of today, the book is sold in the museum in Athens. It will be sold in the Jewish Museum in Thessaloniki. It's already being distributed and getting into the hands of people that can get it into schools. The project, we're blessed to have people that contribute to this book, so it's not a commercial project for sale. It's very relieving not to have to think of the competitive aspect that a children's book has to have when it stands on the shelf of Barnes & Noble. And also the way that it was produced in a very cost-effective way, so you can practically print more books, and that means more books in kids' and educators' hands. So that was a very big thing that we kept in mind. How important is it to write personal stories? Okay, in the age of technology, in the age of commerciality, how important is it for someone to write their personal story that no one and nothing else can write?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's extremely important, especially since the story that I wrote down was one of many two generations ago, and eventually, like, these stories are going to be lost if we don't write them down. And that's a lot of what storytelling is sharing history, sharing traditions, and telling this story and remembering the Holocaust every year. That's a tradition that we've embedded into our yearly routine, and I think that if we can, the earlier we can start these habits and traditions of remembering our ancestors and remembering where we come from, it's extremely important, and nobody else can write these stories but us. Especially in a community so small like the Greek-Jewish one, we really need to keep these stories and memories alive because there aren't so many of them.
So you're a natural maker. You make things. Elio is a natural maker. We live in a place like New York City. I mean, we saw Maus, Art Spiegelman's classic. Elio goes to the school that he graduated from. He went to the same high school. He's been part of my faculty at the School of Visual Arts, so the connections are many. It's a pleasure to know him. But so you come from a place that really is a center, if not the center. I'll make a correction, is the center of the art and design and original thought and making. Why do you make? Why is that so important?
I make because I love to share things with people, and I think that's the only original way to do things. If it's not coming from your hand or it's not coming from your mouth, where is it? I think that originality is just so important, and maintaining authenticity. And I make because I love to make, because I've been raised to make. So I love it. I have no choice. Yeah, exactly.
What are the takeaways from our conversation? What would you like to leave everyone with? Is there a sentence? Is there a message? Is there something that you want people to take away from here other than the calories from the refreshments after they left?
Just that to share these stories with your kids and your grandkids, to take them seriously because they're the next generation who are going to carry these stories on, and to include them in discussions and get their opinions and help them become the next group of people who are going to advocate for our communities, because I mean that's it. If we don't, no one else will, and I think that just involving our kids in this process is just like essential to ensuring that our great-grandparents' memory lives on and that our traditions live on, and just share, include your kids. They're listening.
So you would say recording family histories in creative ways, especially, is very important. Connect with older generations. Invest in intergenerational projects. They last longer. And I would say make space for young people. They will surprise you. Other than a big thank you to your mother, who's been really the heart and soul of this project, do you have any advice? Do you have any words of wisdom? Any words of 13-year-old wisdom or 20-year-old wisdom?
13 and 20, okay. That's a loaded question. I guess that family is the most important thing, and we need to keep them close. I don't think I could have done any of this or gotten anywhere without my family, in Greece and here, and the family I've made for myself through my friends and family friends, and they're the most important. They're the most important. No matter even if you found them, if you have them, just keep them close.
Do we have any questions? Marvin, yes.
Yes.
You get to go first.
First of all, I want to personally thank you for giving voice to the millions of people we lost during the Holocaust. The voices that were cut short. And what you've done is to produce a product that they can learn about today, because as we get older, we lose more and more of those survivors, and those voices are silenced, and the naysayers come in and say it never happened. So what you've done is really beautiful. My question to you is, what grades of students do you believe this book fits?
That's a great question. I think that it would be maybe 3rd to 6th grade, even if a 3rd grader might not understand exactly what's going on. It's written in a way, it's just a normal storybook, and I believe that it can be understood. And a 3rd grader can identify some of these behaviors and be like, well, that's not nice. So whatever that age is, where kids are learning how to behave to each other, and yeah, maybe they don't know the history, but even just shaping the way that they treat each other, kids can be mean, so I hope that they can read this and just, I don't know, listen to each other and not put each other down. So I think around those ages, yeah.
Okay, any other, yes, please, Judith?
Well, I taught Hebrew school, and Sivan presented this book to me when I was teaching 4th graders. So I was so impressed with the book. She knows that. And I realized how much these kids don't know. I was teaching 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds. They were asking me questions. So I realized their knowledge about, the Holocaust, it just isn't there, really. And their parents are young. I lost a lot of my family in the Holocaust. So I experienced personally that loss. It's made a big impression. It's still with me, that loss. So I was so thankful for this book, which explains in wonderful detail, And I'm also a birder, so the fact that she was birds really was great. I was grateful for that. But it's a wonderful teaching tool, wonderful, and I'm hoping to get it into more and more.
Okay.
So thank you to the.
Thank you, Judith. Professor?
I just wanted to stress one point that stands out, that the ending is not a happy ending. And I wonder how a girl your age, a young woman your age, came to this sad ending, which, however, is the best that could have been put. I mean, not all situations like, the story that you, the allegory which you address, have a happy ending. But if you consider the Holocaust, which is our life experience, well, there is a happy ending to the extent that the Nazis did not win a victory at the end. But it's a sad story because in the process 6 million Jews and 60 million people died in the process in the service of a mad project. And that is the sad part of the whole event. I congratulate you for an exceptionally mature production, but in particular because you did not choose to give it, if you like, a kind of a happy,
Hollywood ending.
because which would have spoiled the story.
Yeah, and to speak to that, the ending is rather sharp, rather dark, but for that reason, I put at the end, I drew these eggs to represent kind of that hope that does exist amongst all of us, and to represent my great-grandparents, and these are probably my parents in here. So
Or your children.
So I wanted to end the story on a very real note, but also give that little glimmer of hope in the eggs that were left behind, which I owe my life to. So.
Okay, yeah, you've been patient.
What are you doing now, and what do you foresee in your future?
Oh boy. So right now I am a junior at SUNY Binghamton, which is in upstate New York, and I'm studying environmental studies with a minor in urban planning and a minor in Spanish. And I think I might want to go into renewable energy. I'm figuring that out still. I'm taking some cool classes, and I just want to do something good for the planet. And we've done a lot of harm, so yeah, or be a teacher. I really enjoy teaching, so I don't know, one way or the other. I just want to be a part of something good. I can't solve the climate crisis single-handedly. I wish I could, but I'll do my best. I'll do my part. So we'll see what I do, but hopefully something meaningful. So.
Okay, yes?
Yes, I was, thank you. I was wondering, in terms of the application of your book, told from a perspective of a 13-year-old child, in terms of a high school curriculum that focuses on World War II, the Holocaust, to some extent European fascism, Italian history, and what to some extent happened here. Jim Crow is thrown in with Plessy versus Ferguson. What I wanted to ask you is, do you see your book in terms of its geography, family story, but also the fact that it's Greece, which is not talked about as much as Eastern European or Western Europe in terms of Germany, for example. The kids don't have the background information that you provide. How would you want your book to be introduced?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that if it were to be introduced to an older, like perhaps like maybe 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, I would want maybe a little excerpt to go along discussing some more of the real historical events and some dates, especially in Greece. Yeah, some of that history, which is super important, especially if it's older kids reading this, which I think maybe there will be better books for older kids, but if they did want to read this, to get a little bit of that personal background, and that this isn't just a story, it's based on real events, but yeah, it would be really important to include that.
And hopefully by the book getting into school libraries and given to educators, it will organically, if not officially, find its way.
I'm working on a basket.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, yes.
I would like to ask you, first of all, congratulations, very nice work. At the time you presented the story of the book to come to your classmates, how did your classmates react? And at the time and a little afterwards, a few days afterwards or weeks afterwards?
Yes, I will be honest, we didn't get the chance to present it to our classmates. But I did have a bunch of friends read it, like I've had a few friends read it, and I know they thought that, especially people who didn't know as much about this topic.
Was it a motivation to them to ask more things from you, maybe?
Yes, a few friends, they were asking me some more questions about it, especially ones that didn't know, but I hope I have more of a chance to really see the impact that this has on students, because I didn't get a chance to at the time. But when it does happen, I'm going to keep that in mind, because it's really important to see how a book like this not only sticks with someone when they read it, but also days after. That's really where the changing happens, you know, so.
Okay, yes?
Was it always called the Lagoon?
Ooh, that's a good question. No, this was the second version when I came up with the name, the Cahoon Lagoon. But I wanted to do something like the epitome of evil or something like that. But I thought that was a little too, I don't know. I just decided this might be a little bit better, because you open up with the name of just a really amazing and peaceful place like the Lagoon, something calm, and then kind of going through the stages of it getting more and more serious.
Translating the book into Greek was a very
Yeah.
interesting experience from the name. In Greek it's called Ilimni, that really means the lake. Because we didn't want to say the little lake, because there's no real name for a lagoon. In Greek it would be a mini lake, and we didn't want to go into something too childish. The names were kind of like a struggle going back and forth to translate them to something that, I mean, one of the vultures' name is Brutus, that exhumes evil. So there's no really Brutus in Greek. You would think you're talking about Popeye's enemy. So it was an interesting conundrum in what to do, but I think we fell into a good place. And also the Greek is really an adaptation, not a direct translation. So this is by no means two books right next to each other and people are comparing it, but I feel that good work and a professional editor actually gave it a last pass. So we worked with several professionals on it above and beyond our circle, and that was very, very helpful. But it was a long process. Both books were a long process, but it worth every minute, every comma, and semicolon. It was all worth it. Do we have one more question? Yes,
Yes,
please.
please. Amazing. So much work is involved to put this together. I'm sure it was a huge distraction from your academics. So good for you for managing all these things simultaneously. And so my question is, like, how long has it been published on the American market? What has been the uptake and the reaction of the market? Are people finding you? Or are you still pushing it? Or is that a naive question? Is it just
It's
published
been
in-
popular in the Greek-Jewish market.
Because I can see you being a very valuable speaker in a variety of Jewish communities around the country, in the education circles, and then just in the communities who are interested in learning about the Holocaust memory. So I just see there's lots of opportunities for you to speak and share your book.
Yeah, no, that's a great, I'll have to talk to my manager. But definitely, no, that's a really good point.
And I know we have two more questions. Yes.
One, I'll ask on the side. One is, would you ever consider a sequel? I know there's been a lot of work in this, but given that now.
What happens to the eggs?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I gotta get ready.
And then the second part of the question would be, as this goes out to educational environments, are there like associated questions? A lot of times there'll be like questions for discussion in classrooms, like is the museum putting that together? Is that something that maybe you've put together?
Yeah, so the educational program that happened in January of 2025 in the
And
Jewish
it's gonna
community,
happen in
and it's gonna happen
2026.
again. I remember reading through some, they had come up with their own questions, but it was along the lines of, you know, it was like, what was the first thing you noticed that changed, or what action, like how did these actions make you feel, or a little bit more feelings based, especially for younger kids. But that would definitely be something to look into, to like have some curated questions that could spark some discussion amongst young readers. But yeah, and a second book, we'll see. I don't know. Let me graduate.
Yes.
So I teach third grade at a Sephardic yeshiva, and I have not read your book yet, but I'm already imagining how we can incorporate it
Wow.
and reach out to other schools that, you know, we're connected with. And I could see it being something that we read every year, and the third graders' analysis is one way, and the fourth, and every year we can see that text, and then we get you up on Zoom, and we have a Q&A with you. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I would love to.
And one more, I don't want to leave you hanging.
Thank you. So you mentioned that you shared this book with your friends. Given what we're seeing on college campuses today, has there been an opportunity to do something where you're going to college and kind of bring about a conversation in a way that, you know, it's not, if somebody doesn't really understand, this seems like a very, they're not, to learn about a book and maybe not really understand what they're really learning about, it seems like a nice, a less aggressive way for somebody who doesn't really understand the context of everything to kind of approach the subject.
Yeah, I think that this would be a really great way, maybe something a little bit more advanced, but either way, even this, to spark some of, like, that sort of peaceful discussion, especially since on college campuses it's been not so peaceful, as I've seen, like, at Binghamton and across campuses. But I mean, I've had some discussions with my friends about this. I try to, I don't know, the extent to which I want to start something, and I don't know, I want to, but yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I think that using aids like this could be a really great way to have a discussion that's a little bit more facilitated rather than just two people yelling at each other and not discussing the core issue at hand. But yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to do that with this book, but that would be a good idea.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming.